right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to my series, Healing Through Sharing. Today, I have with me Kelly France, and he is a nationally certified addiction recovery coach and intervention professional and has over 15 years of personal addiction recovery experience. Thank you so much, Kelly, for taking time out of your busy schedule to be with me this afternoon. And so why don't I just have you maybe add on to that introduction of yourself?
Okay, Rosanna. Well, first, thank you very much for having me be a part of this, and I'm really honored that you asked me. So thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And yeah, like you said, my life today is a lot different from the life that I used to live. So I'm a recovery coach. I work with people in addiction recovery, or even people who aren't yet in addiction recovery but want to be in addiction recovery. So I'll work with anyone with a substance abuse problem, alcohol, drugs, whatever it is, and sort of meet them where they are in their journey, because I have walked that journey myself, and I know for me what worked and I know what didn't work. And back, I guess, in 2006,
Mhm.
I had my first experience with suicidal thoughts and a suicide attempt, all because of the life I was living. I was addicted to crack cocaine. I'm an alcoholic.
Mm.
I've recovered from both, thankfully, with a lot of help from other people.
That's great.
But yeah, thank you. But it took me from that first. I remember I went to my first detox or withdrawal management, if you want to call it, whatever you want to call it, back
Mm.
in 2006. But it wasn't until 2011 that I finally got, you know, sobered up and actually started walking a different path that I'm continuing to walk today. So life is a lot different. So like I was saying, I had those 5 years in there where I was not wanting to do what I was doing, but I would continue to do it anyway because I really
Mhm.
didn't know enough about the disease of addiction to know that just because I have an honest desire to change doesn't necessarily mean I have the power to change. I need a lot of help. So
Right.
I know what not to do, and I know what to do as well.
Yeah, and so what made you realize that you needed to change?
I think it was so many different attempts at going it alone, trying to say, okay, I'm just going to stop. I'm going to stop using. I'm going to stop drinking. I'm going to, or worse, I'm going to control it this
Mhm.
time, and it would never work out for me. It might work out for a week or 2 weeks, but I could never seem to stay stopped. So after 5 years of experimenting with that, with putting my amazing family through absolute hell.
Mhm.
Forget about, what I was going through. What I put the people who cared about me through is far outweighs anything I did to myself. After so many attempts, it came to me that, Kelly, either you do something about this, or this is what your life is going to look like until the day you die, which is not far off if you keep acting like this. So
Mhm.
finally, in 2011, I decided to do what I saw so many other people do, because I was in a recovery community,
Mhm.
but I wasn't doing what they were all doing. So I said, you know what? It dawned on me, Kelly, if you do what they do, you'll get what they're getting. So I
Yeah.
finally sort of went all in on my recovery, and more importantly, all in on my life and in on my future as well.
Mhm. So you were part of that community, but you were still trying to do it on your own. Is that
Yes.
correct? Okay, but
Yeah.
were they some other people, were they doing, you said they were doing different things. So what were they doing that you weren't doing?
They were. And I'll say that I started off, and I'm actually still in a 12-step program, right? So I like the 12-step programs for addiction recovery. Not everyone loves them, and that's totally cool. That's, it's a not a pathway for everybody. But
Mhm.
what I saw a lot of the people doing that I admired in these meetings and in these groups was living an exciting life. Yes, they were doing all the work they needed to do in recovery, but they were taking it a step further, and they were starting to live this really cool life. I saw people getting jobs that they wanted, started opening businesses, getting married, having kids, go back to school, taking risks, which is something I realize now that, not just for people in addiction recovery. I think it's for any human being on the planet. If I'm not
Absolutely.
out there, risking failure,
Mhm.
I think my life is going to be pretty boring and unsatisfying. So that's one thing I had to do. I had to get over that fear of failure and get
Mhm.
out there and fail a bunch of times and start dreaming of the life that I want and start, trying to become that person.
And working at it because like you said,
Yes.
you can't do it alone. And it reminds me of years back, and I don't even know, I can't remember the company's name, but it's a company for men's weight loss. And their advertising would be if you, how does it go? If you would have done it, now I can't remember. If you would have done it alone, you would have already accomplished it. So meaning if you wanted to lose weight on your own, you would have lost weight, but obviously you can't because you need help. And so, that's why they were there. They were there as, mentors, coaches for weight loss for men in particular. But it's a similar thing where, yeah, we try to do things on our own. And it's not just with addiction, you're right. It's with anything in life.
Mhm.
You could have so low self-esteem. And, if you want to get rid of that feeling, the imposter syndrome, or being stuck, or, learning how to tame your inner critic, if you could do it on your own, you would have done it. But obviously, sometimes you can't do it on your own. You need that
Mhm.
extra help to get.
You're absolutely right. And I know the exact, I mean, I've heard that radio commercial
Yeah.
literally hundreds of
Okay. So
times. I
do you
forget.
remember how it
It's
went? Because
it's Harvey something is
yes,
the weight loss
Harvey
company. And he's
Brooker. Harvey Brooker.
Brooker. There you go. And
Yeah.
I always steal that directly from that commercial. If you could have done it alone, you would have done it already. And
Excellent. Thank you.
absolutely, I absolutely love that about
Yeah.
what they say. And it's so true. You're right. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But it's coming to that point where you realize that, hey, you know what? I can't do it on my own. I do
Yep.
need the help.
For sure. And then, realizing that there's nothing wrong. And people are, for the most part, people
Mhm.
like to help people. I know you love to help people. I
Yeah.
like to help people.
Yeah.
People are not averse to helping other people. People love giving of themselves,
Mhm.
and it's just a matter of sometimes being too proud to say, well, no, I really should be able to have the willpower to do this on my own, whatever the case is, drug
Right.
addiction, weight loss, anything.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
no, and I've come to realize that in my, the education I have now that I use as a recovery coach and a life coach, that willpower for the most part doesn't work, and we need the help from other people. We need help by changing our environment, our surroundings, changing the things that we take in, the media we
Mhm.
watch, right? We have to realize that, or I can say for myself, I have to realize that my willpower is almost useless.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And so, because I mean, on the other hand, we do have the power within,
Mhm.
but it's having even that accountability, having somebody that you can say, hey, you know what? Yes, I did A, B, and C.
Mhm.
And, because if you're going to do it on your own, you might say, oh, you know what? I know I have to do A, but I'll do it tomorrow. And then tomorrow comes and it's like, okay, you know what? I don't feel like doing it today. I'm going to do it, the next day. And then it kind of snowballs into weeks and years. And, then it never happens. But if you have somebody by your side who is
Mhm.
your cheerleader, so to speak, right? Saying, hey,
Yeah.
you know what? Let's do this together.
Definitely. And I think, to your point about, if it's just me being accountable to myself or you or anyone for that matter, I know that I am far more likely to let myself down than I am to let you down, because I don't want to appear that way in your eyes. So once I have someone that's keeping me accountable, I
Mhm.
am far more likely to accomplish what I said I was going to accomplish. Good point you brought up there.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And so what were some of the tools? I mean, I know, like, are you now the tools that you used is that part of your program now? Are you using those same tools?
Yes, but I've also added a lot of tools
Mhm.
to my recovery. So I still do go to 12-step meetings. I would say I go to 1 to 2 a week,
Mhm.
and I'm not as involved as I used to be. Some people come into a 12-step program or whatever program that they're involved in, and they stay totally on the front lines for now and forever, and that's totally amazing. And I'm currently not that guy. I still help people
Mhm.
directly for free in that program, but the tools that I've added are, I guess, I love talking about my future. And people are going to tell me that in recovery, well, Kelly, forget about the future. We have to live in today. We have to live in now. But what I have found through I guess my education as a coach is that whatever I think my future is going to look like, whatever idea I have of my future, that dictates the way I feel about myself today. That gives me either hope for the future or I have no hope for the future. And so the tools to design my future the way I want it to look, the way I want it to unfold, as well as all the techniques and the strategies to use every single day.
Mm.
For me, I have a list every morning when I wake up. It's 1 to 3 things that I need to do first thing in the morning to get me a little bit closer to being that person I want to be in the future. And there are so many strategies that we can use
Mhm.
to continue to work towards the person that we want to be. Like I don't deal with people's pasts. I realize that some people need therapy. I was one of those people. I saw a psychotherapist. They're amazing.
Mhm.
But I will take you from where you're at and start designing your future. So these are a lot of the tools that I use in my own life. And
Mhm.
that's something that I didn't get out of working a 12-step program. And not to say that it's not great, because it does serve an amazing purpose,
Yeah.
but I really had to get beyond sobriety if I was ever going to have a life that I was proud of, and I'll say that I'm so excited. When we talked about this before we started recording, I just got to spend the last 5 months in New York City, and that's just something I've wanted to do ever since I first visited there in the late 90s, and I plan on doing the same thing next year, things that, and of course I'm planning that now. So,
That's
um, you know,
amazing. Yeah.
yeah, and I'll tell anyone in recovery, but also any other non-recovery person that I work with, that we need to dream a lot bigger than our current capabilities, because that's where the magic starts to happen. When we have to actually
Mhm.
become a new person to achieve our goals, that's where the real magic is, the real challenge begins.
Yeah, and the drive, like that's what
Yeah.
drives us, and that's what, it's, these are the things that we're passionate about, and passion, puts that fire in our belly
Hmm.
to do something and to achieve those goals.
Hmm.
Yeah, you have to live in the present, that's fine, but there's nothing wrong with having something to achieve to. So,
Of course.
you're not living in the past anymore because you've done that.
Hmm.
The past, I like to just say that, we have to heal from our past. We can't change our past. We, shouldn't, or, if we have issues, if we've had events that have affected us,
Hmm.
deal with them in the present, but um, don't be stuck in there. Like, don't be stuck in those events that happened to you. Right. But I agree, like you should have a goal. You should
Hmm.
have, something to work towards. And it takes the same amount of energy to think big than it does to think small. So why not think big? And
Good point.
yeah, and so, sometimes we put limitations on ourselves and say, oh, there's no way I can have that big house or that great job or that, perfect I mean, no relationships are perfect, but almost perfect relationship with someone who, I can really connect with.
Mhm.
Um, and sometimes it's that lack of self-love, self-acceptance that puts up those barriers. But
Mhm.
I love that, that's part of your program because,
Sure.
that's what we need, something to work towards, you know?
That's right. That's right. And it's I think it was, geez, Jim Rohn, I think, is the gentleman who said it, don't become a millionaire for the $1,000,000, but for the person it's going to make of you to make that first million. I'm paraphrasing, but it's not
Yeah,
maybe about the goal, but it's maybe about the person that you will become to be able to achieve that goal, right?
that's
What
right.
changes?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think he had the story about someone came to his door and selling chocolate bars, and he couldn't afford to buy those chocolate bars. So he made sure that he worked at a job where he could afford to buy those chocolate bars. So it wasn't even, I'm going to make money for myself. It's going to make
Mm,
money so that I can, you know, give back to others.
right.
Yeah. So to your point, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah. So you talked a little bit about family, and
Mhm.
it is hard on the family around you. When someone goes through some, any type of addiction. And
That's right.
do you do you bring the family in? Because sometimes I feel like, you know, it's great for the person who's recovering, but is there something else for the family? Like, what kind of supports do they have, if any?
So, I mean, I don't do family therapy. I will always have a conversation and say, if we're having a meeting, because most of the work I do is online, I'll say, yes, bring them on if you're comfortable with them. Absolutely, and it's great to get to know the people and to um, I guess reassure them that there is a solution for their loved one who's struggling and who's putting them through hell as well. But the one thing I would do for their family is to, connect them to people who are or were in their shoes,
Yeah, yeah,
whether that's an Al-Anon type situation or just people that I've met along my road that, have struggled through somebody else's addiction and come out the other side with or without that person, right? Because the solution is not always to stay with that person. Sometimes sometimes you gotta get the hell out of there, right?
right. Yeah, yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
yeah, but connecting with people who can relate is, I think, so important.
Yeah, and that's a really good point too, because there are so many support groups out there, and it's really important, I guess, just to know that there are things out there that can help you. You don't have to do it alone. Uh,
Yep, for
yeah,
sure. It's just as good for as good for the family as it is for the person who is actually going through the addiction. But we need human connection. We need to plug into something, no matter where we are. In whether you're recovering from my addiction or I'm recovering from my addiction, we both need support. 100%.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So tell me about, like, so you waited the 5 years. Is that the norm? Like, do you have statistics on, how long someone will go at it on their own, before they do actually seek help? And how about those who don't seek help?
Well, and I won't say that I didn't seek help in those 5 years, but I just didn't really go all in on my recovery at that point, you
Yeah, I
know?
guess that's what I meant. So yes,
Yeah,
you knew that the help was out there, but
sure.
you tried to do it on your own. And
Right. I accepted it when it was convenient for me. And other than that, I was still very much in my selfish little world, and I still wanted to escape through using drugs and alcohol.
Mhm.
Um, and as far as your other question, as far as statistics, I really don't know. I mean, I know a lot of people who stopped and stayed stopped, and they're living an amazing life today. And I know
Mhm.
some other people who tried to stop, couldn't stop, and are still not stopped today. So it varies. I couldn't give you a percentage. I really have no idea what the percentage of people who try addiction recovery, what percent recover and what percent, we never see again, or what percent die, right? And
Yeah.
yeah.
So I just want to ask about the rehab centers, because I know that there are quite a few rehab centers. Some are more expensive than others,
Mhm.
and that in itself might be a barrier to someone,
Yeah.
who they might not be able to afford it. So, what's the next best thing? Is it these programs that, like, where do you find a program like the one that you went to, or how do they find you, let's say?
Mhm.
And I'm sure there's a lot of people who do similar things. So where do they look? Like, where would they even, you know, go to?
Well, I mean, let's just say you had an addiction problem. Where do you think the first thing? Where would you go first?
Probably my family doctor, which I don't think
Okay.
is a very good idea.
No, listen. Well,
I
it
know it
depends.
does. It
If
depends,
you
yeah.
if you want your driver's license taken away from you, that's the first one you go to. I'm totally kidding. I don't. That's not my experience. But
I
but
don't know.
no. Yeah, I mean, listen. Family doctor is a great idea. I
Mhm.
I that wouldn't have been the first thing on my mind, but that is a fantastic idea. For me, I just assumed you would say you would go to Google, which is what I
Oh,
would
true. Yeah, I guess.
say, go to Google and find out, right? There are, you mentioned, rehab centers. I've been to a few of them myself. The first one was, as far as rehab centers, but was not very expensive. I think it was about $7,000 for 3 weeks.
Okay.
And, depending on anyone's financial situation, either that's super expensive. It's not, it depends on
It depends. It's
financial
all, yeah,
situation.
yeah, it's all relative. Yeah.
And that was for 3 weeks. The third one I went to was a 6-month program where I stayed for all 6 months. It was amazing. And it cost me $50 for the
Wow.
whole 6 months. So it was run by the Salvation Army. It was a beautiful place in Glencairn, Ontario,
Okay.
called Hope Acres. And if anyone is watching this and has a loved one who's male who needs some long-term treatment, try Hope Acres out there, and honestly get in touch with me, and I can set you up out there, because there are, I hear people complain that maybe in Ontario that the help for addiction and mental health is lacking. That may be, but that's not my experience. I found that every time I desperately needed help, whether that was the going to emerge at the crisis center at the hospital, whether that was getting into detox, or whether that was getting into an inpatient rehab center for free or for fee,
Yeah,
I found that I always got what I needed,
that's great to know.
as long as I kept persisting. I just couldn't call them and say, hey, call me when you have a bed available. No, I would have to call them the next day, or
Right.
later on that day, and the day after, and the day after. They notice that I'm interested, so they're going to make special, they want people who want
To
to
be
help
helped.
themselves.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. So there's that. And there's also, in not every, I shouldn't say every community, but for example, in York Region,
Hmm.
there's Addiction Services Central Ontario, ASCO, and they are a great resource to start with.
Hmm.
And they're also a free service as well.
That's great. I mean,
Mhm.
because you do hear all these horror stories, and yeah,
Mhm.
where do they come from? But you're right. Like, if they want people to help them who want to help themselves,
Yes.
nothing worse than, you trying to help someone and they're resisting.
Mhm.
And it's discouraging for the person who's trying to help too. Um, but I'm gonna have your contact information below.
Cool.
So, and if you want to add anything else, then we can have different various links, or they can
Sure.
connect with you, because you sound like you're full of very good resources, and people can tap into you for sure.
Well, thanks. Yeah. No, I'll give you all the information you need, and I will take a phone call from someone, provided I'm next to my phone at any time, right? I don't, I have no problem doing that. People can email me, they can text me, whatever the case is. Yeah. And, I always offer, if someone is in addiction recovery, or a family member of someone in addiction recovery, a free half hour or 45-minute session, just to get to know each other, to see if we might be a good fit to work together. And you can really pick my brain in half an hour or 45 minutes to get some good free info. If we never speak again after that, that's totally cool. But I always have that chat with anyone I'm going to work with before. But yeah, if anyone who's watching this has any questions, get in touch with me. I'm here to help.
Yeah, that's so generous, because that alone is worth so much. I guess, just understanding or getting to that point where, um, somebody's hit rock bottom,
Mhm.
and understanding that, hey, you know what? There's a solution to every problem. And my mother used to say that all the time. Just
Yeah.
because you're in a state, it doesn't mean that you have to stay that way. And it's just, I guess, wrapping your head around, yeah, I can beat this. I don't have to
Mhm.
stay in this spot and go down this rabbit hole.
That's right.
And so, like, how do we send that message out?
Well, by doing things like this, first of all,
Mhm.
I think
Yeah.
this is a great start, and I see your social media stuff out there too, Rosanna. It's amazing. So there's that. I mean, and I think that's just really, really cool that you're doing this and that we're doing this together as well.
Yeah, because I mean, I see your posts as well, and they're very similar. They're so
Mm,
aligned, you know,
sure.
because
Yeah.
it's all about having that vision for your life,
Hmm.
working towards it, making plans, and taking care of yourself, and
Hmm.
while doing it, right?
That's
And
right.
not letting any barriers stand in your way, because like you said, if you can envision it, you can do it. You can take baby
Sure.
steps, and we're all different. So it might take me a year to get there. It might take somebody else 6 months, but
Hmm.
you know the the important thing is that we are getting somewhere else.
That's right.
That's
Yeah. And great way to put it. And I think, from what you do and what I do is, if we're, you know, we, we can talk about what we do, not just on here, but to other people. So
Mhm.
people that will know that there's some unique help available for any sort of situation that they're struggling with, or, more importantly, someone who is a family member of theirs might be struggling with, who might be too afraid to ask for help. They might be able to give them a nudge and say, I know Rosanna, or I know Kelly, or, and I, had a conversation with them. Here's their card, or here's their number.
Right.
As long as, I used to be ashamed of my past because I did some pretty tragic things to people when I was doing my thing out there, but I'm not that way anymore.
Mm.
I don't see myself as that person anymore. So I have no problem talking about my past, because I know it does give other people hope, and it gives the families of other people hope. So I think speaking about it, not just like this, but in
Yeah,
general,
absolutely.
is
And
a
I
good thing.
think, I mean, I think we all have things that we regret that we did in our past. But like I said, it's that healing. You have to heal from all those past events that you went through,
Mhm.
and forgive yourself, because, a lot of times we're our worst enemy, and
Mhm.
we prevent ourselves from moving on.
Yeah.
Yeah. So any last minute advice that you can give to anybody before
Uh,
we
uh, I'll steal a quote from one of my favorite people, Tony Robbins. He said, and this can go for anyone, just not from anyone in the addiction. So this is a stolen quote. This did not come from here, but he said, the quality of my life is based on the amount of uncertainty that I can handle. And I really love that quote. That, to me, that means, look, I have to take risks if I am going to have a happy and fulfilling life. I have to do things that scare me. I have to risk failure. I have to fail.
Mhm.
I have to have some uncertainty. If I'm constantly in my comfort zone, I'm going to have a super boring life.
Excellent. Yeah, I love that, because we do have to get out of our comfort zone. Otherwise,
Mhm.
we're going to be in the same place all the time.
That's right.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you so much. Yeah, you've given us so much to think about, so many resources and so much hope. And I really like that, because you know, going through just an everyday things, especially with addictions, like I said, you feel like there's no hope, but there is hope. And
Mhm.
knowing that is you know, can give somebody the drive to get out of that
That's
situation.
right.
Yeah, well, I look forward to your posts, and I'm gonna have all your information down below so that we can all follow you.
Well,
All right.
thank you so much. I appreciate your time as well. This has been really, really cool.
It's been great. Thanks so much.
You're welcome.
Bye.